This is programming problem 2, P2. And some of you asked me to go over how I auto-graded these things. So let me talk about it here. So I'm not going through the answer. I posted the solution already in Java and Python. So here I'm just telling you how I'm auto-grading these. So there are two parts. The first part is training a decision stump. So it corresponds to questions 1 to 4. And it's basically a one-level decision tree, and you only split once. So you are given which feature you are asked to split. So here, for example, 5. And what you are supposed to do is look at 5, and you have 9 possible ways to split it. Threshold 1, threshold 2, so above 1, below 1, above 2, below 2, and above 9, below 9. Below 10 doesn't make sense because all the training points will be in one of the branches, so you don't need to compare with that split. So basically, I want you to compare the 9 possible splits and find the best one in terms of information gain. And you can enter the counts here, the number of positive and negative ones, and here the positive and negative ones with above and below the threshold. There are 4 numbers here and 2 numbers here. So when I'm grading, I'm actually not grading if these questions 1 and 3 are exactly correct according to the original data set. I'm just checking if there are 2 numbers here and 4 numbers here. And for questions 2 and 4, I'm grading if they are consistent with the numbers you entered in 1 and 3. So 2 should be based on 1, and 4 should be based on the 6 numbers in 1 and 3. So technically, if you don't maximize the information gain, you'll get the points. But I hope you could do that. And let me actually show you an example. So for example, the one TA gave me. And so it should be here, they should be numbers like this. Actually, if you actually enter exactly these numbers, you can get the points because I don't actually know. I'm not checking the original data set. However, if you actually enter the same thing as the TA does, and your ID is different, so then I will know, and this is cheating. So don't copy from someone else, although you can get the points. Okay, so that's part 1. And part 2, the first thing is entering the whole tree. So you need to train the whole decision tree. It will be a very large tree like this. And here, it's only 5 points because I'm not checking whether the tree is correct or not. I'm just checking if the tree is entered in the correct format. So you can basically enter a very small tree, like just with if and else, and then you can get the points, but you won't get anything for the next question. But in any case, here I'm checking the format, and the format includes you need these if and else. You cannot have an else if. So else if should not be on the same line. So if on the same line you have else if, it will not be graded correctly. And also the other thing is return should not be on a different line. So if you have return like this, I won't be able to recognize it. So return must be on the same line as if or on the same line as else. And the complete tree structure should look exactly like this. One thing is you don't really need the brackets. You don't need the space, but I would recommend you to have the space so that it's easier to see what's happening. And everything else you do need to have. Like you do need to have the smaller or equal to sign. You cannot have a greater sign, for example, and you need the return to be spelled correctly, and so on. Okay, so that's basically the 5 points here. The 2 points is just a sanity check. You are computing the depth correctly because you need it for part 8. And question 7 is just entering the labels. So I asked to do it in one line, and the TA did it in many lines. It's okay, but you should output them in one line. So basically, the answer should be the first half should be 2, and the second half should be 4. I'm allowing like a few of them incorrect. I think a few of them is incorrect here. Maybe not. All of them are correct. No, that one here is incorrect. So I'm allowing a few mistakes, but it should be mostly correct. And here it's 15 points because I'm checking two things. First, I'm going to pass the tree that you entered, and I'm going to check if your tree does generate on the test set these labels. So first, consistency. If it's not consistent, if you enter like a tree with just if and else, and then you suddenly enter the correct labels, you'll get 0 because it's not generated by your tree. And the second thing is checking for accuracy. So if your tree is very inaccurate, like 2 and 4 and 2, and like less than 95% in accuracy, then you will lose some points. So I think it's 50%, 75%, 85%, 90%, and 95%, each worth like 3 points. So that's how I grade question 7. And question 8 is exactly the same as question 5. I'm just grading the format. And there's one additional thing that I'm doing. I'm checking the depth. So if you go back, I have the maximum depth here. The maximum depth is 8. So if you enter a tree that's too large, for example, if you enter the tree in question 5, you probably won't get the points. So one thing I forgot to say is that you need to split according to the variables you are given. If you don't, you won't get these 5 points as well. So if you're splitting according to say x1, then you won't get the points, because if you go back and look at which features you are allowed to split according to, you need to stick to this list of 5 or 6 numbers. So all of these splits should be according to those features. So again, that's something that I'm going to check. And here, I'm going to check the depth as well. So lastly, I'm going to do the same thing to generate a label according to the tree that you provided in question 8. And then I'm going to check how many of these are incorrect. Actually, after pruning, there are a few more that's incorrect, like 2 and 2 and 2. So some of them are incorrect, but it's okay. As I said, I am not requiring 100% accuracy. So let's see. When I click grade, 49 out of 49, and here these are the accuracy threshold that I'm using.